Okay, so today we're just going to do a brief overview of the subsurface scattering with the Emily scan data. So, as I spoke about in class, the WikiHuman project is a scan of a digital human that is given to everyone for free so that you can download all these files. You can download the model and the diffuse, the specular, and the displacement, and the microgeometry, and all these files are available to you to just download and use. So the website's here, and a really awesome tutorial where I learned a lot about how to use this data in Arnold. You can watch this video here, which is going to go over pretty much most of the things that I'm going to go over. But for consistency, I'm just going to do it myself. So for my workflow or anything else. So, all right, so you can check this video out too. And this is where you download all your files from. Okay, so I've already went and done all this. So let's get started. So I have, I've created a camera here. And let me just turn on the overscan. Okay. So let's start attaching some of these shaders. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to make a light. So I'm just going to make a spotlight. Because we want to have a light that is going to show what the subsurface scattering is doing. All right, so whenever I selected that light, I just hit T so that I can have the point of focus of the light. All right. Let's see, I'll run the IPR and render from camera perspective or camera shape. All right, so we need to turn up the exposure for this. 13, 14. Okay, that looks good. All right, that'll work for now. I'm gonna pause the render. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, let's actually add the shaders first. So Arnold shaders. Okay, so I'm going to select her, go to assign new material, AI standard surface, and let's start adding this stuff. All right, just to clean everything up, I'm going to make a new tab, head material, select all this stuff and get rid of it. And this new material that I made is this AI standard surface 2. So let's call this head skin material. All right, great. So I got my shading network or my shading group, and I've got my head material here. So, and it's already attached. Okay, so let's start importing our files. So I'm going to go to color, file, and I've already moved all those color files into my sources directory in the set project for Subsurface Emily that I've made here. So I'm going to be using color unpainted, which look like it takes a minute to load because these files are massive. So there we go. Here's the first one. This is the diffuse unlit unpainted. So load this. And if your color space is not set to raw, like this one's set to sRGB, make sure that it is. All right, so I set that one to raw. And let's click on the the head skin material again, and let's import the next map. So I'm going to import the spec color map next. Same process. And we're not going to use this single scatter unpainted because that's really more for other renderers. You could probably find a use for it, but I'm just going to forego using it. And since these are all EXRs, remember we have to set it to raw. Okay. All right, so now let's load the displacement map. So I'm going to click on the shading group over here. Let's call this head skin shading group. And for displacement matte, click on the checker box, go to file. And one directory up, I have the displacements here. And I'm going to use this one. I'm having trouble loading this one. I think it's just too massive, so my computer's freaking out. So I'm just going to be using this one. I'll try to figure out what's up with that one, but this one's fine for our purpose. All right, so we have the base material set up. Cool. All right, now what we have to do is we have to click on Emily's head, and this is gonna bother me, so I'm just gonna get rid of this. I imported this from a different scene, so that naming convention was driving me crazy. All right, so let's delete the history, freeze transformation. All right, cool. So now all we have is the transform node, the shape node, the layer, and the material that's attached to it. So I'm going to go to the shape node, go to the Arnold tab. I'm going to scroll down here to subdivisions and displacement attributes. And let's turn on Cat Clark, and let's try iteration of 3. That should be more than enough, I think. Okay, so let's see what we got. It's going to take a minute to load because those files are enormous. I'll just pause the video real quick. All right, so that loaded. And yeah, that took just probably about 20 seconds more. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add an HDR in here just so we can see a little bit better what's going on. So, all right, I'm going to go to Arnold Lights, Sky Dome, create this Sky Dome here, and go to Color, File, and I've got some HDRs on my desktop that I'm going to use. So let's go to, I actually have not tried any of these on this yet, so this should be cool. Try this one. Make sure that it's set to raw. Go to Sky Dome. All right, set to lat long. That's right. Okay, let's see what it does. It's probably going to be too bright. Okay. It's not crazy bright. Let's try -1. Knock it down a little bit. Okay. Good for now. Okay. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to activate my AOVs just so that I can see what's going on here. So I'm going to go to the render settings up here. And then we're going to go to the AOVs tab, go to built-in, and I'm going to turn on diffuse direct, indirect, specular direct, indirect. I'll turn on the SSS, the albedo, direct, and indirect. All right. That way we can see all those passes individually. So right now we do not have any SSS, so nothing's happening. So let's look at the spec. That's pretty crazy. So one thing we got to do is we got to really turn down that roughness value. Let's see. That's probably all right. I mean, this is going to be entirely dependent on like if she was just running or something, or you know. All right, so we'll just keep it like that for now. All right, let's select that again. Select that material. Whoops. What did I do here? Oh man. Got my attribute editor stuck in here. There we go. All right. That's annoying. Okay. All right, select that again. Let's go to the head material. Actually, let me pull my hyper shade over here. What we want to do now is we want to attach our, let me get rid of this. We want to attach our subsurface color. So I'm just going to take the diffuse here and do an AI color correct node. Let me pause this. And I'm going to take the out color for this and put it in here. Take the out color of this and put it into subsurface color. So we need to turn on subsurface as well because I think it's weight 0. Yeah. Subsurface at 1. So we have applied the subsurface color in there. So let's go to this AI color. I'm going to do isolate select so I can see exactly what's happening in this AI color correct node. All right. So I'm just going to have this AI color correct node selected off screen so we can see what's going on here. So let's do 0.2, 0.3. Just a little more red. Gamma this down a little bit. Oh, actually, you know what? This map needs to go into the radius. So let's just run. Actually, let's just run the regular diffuse in there. See what that does. All right. Now I still have the AI color correct node here selected. So let's move this around. So you can see if I hit the isolate select, this is the AI color correct that I have running through into the subsurface radius. So if we, and I have the regular diffuse running into the subsurface color, which basically the subsurface color is going to be front scattering and the radius is back scattering. So we want like a red color for the back scattering. So let's turn this, let's see. Froze a minute there. Turn the saturation up. Gamma this down a little bit more. All right. I mean, there's definitely some areas that need to be worked out. I mean, her lips shouldn't be purple like that. You can go in and you can like paint this map yourself if you want it to be perfect. All right, so we can see some red coming in here behind the ear, which is what we want. We want that that level there. All right, so what we can do is I'm clicking on the head skin material, and I'm going to start messing with the scale here. Let's try 0.7. So the scale is like basically a multiplier. It's going to increase the amount of subsurface. It's actually increasing or decreasing the scale of the actual model in render, not actually in space. But you know, if an object was really small, it's going to have a huge amount of light penetrating through it. If the object is really big, it's going to have very little light penetrating through it, just because there's more matter to move through. If that makes sense. Specular level is pretty crazy. I was just going to knock it down a little bit. All right. So let's do like a value of like 10. All right, let's do a value of like 0.01. So basically it's like saying that this thing is like super massive, so that there's like barely any subsurface going in at all. And if we did like a scale of 10, basically it's shrinking this down so that it's like a really tiny person. So like there's very little skin, like the size like a thimble or something. So we actually have pretty much the right scale, because this is scan data. So this should be about right, actually. All right, so does not look like the displacement is working. So let's see what's going on there. All right, so let's go into displacement here. It's because it's set to sRGB. So let's set that to raw. And I will update the scene. Let this thing for a minute. All right, so I changed the displacement setting, or the displacement file, so that it was set to raw, and then re-rendered it, and it is working now. So if you go into render, debug shading, and go to basic, it'll actually show you just the displacement with like a simple shader. So now that you can see it's actually working. So let's actually go back to disabled. We're going to go to the specular direct. I don't think there's actually any information back here, which is why this is like super smooth. All right, so I think I increased the bump a little bit too much. We'll just leave it at 1 for now, actually. Or the displacement, sorry. All right. Look at the SS. Direct, indirect. Okay. All right, let me try a different, or what we can do is rotate this. If we select this cone here, or this spotlight. I'm just going to turn up the exposure on this. Try to get some more subsurface going through there. All right, awesome. It's not when you're working on subsurface, it's not just like trying to get things to come through the backscatter. It's actually scattering light on the front as well, which is important because it actually makes light kind of scatter, like hit the surface and kind of to move around into the surface a little bit. I'm actually going to turn the weight up on that because the displacement is actually breaking it up pretty well. And that spec map here. And you can go in and paint a custom map for the lips or for different areas that you want to increase the amount of subsurface. Okay, let me pause this render and let's try a different sky dome. Let me see if I can get one that'll work. Let's try this one out. This looks interesting. All right, make sure it's set to raw. I just kind of want to see some different results. So let me save that one. Okay. That spotlight is a little intense. So I'm just going to off screen here, turn it to like a value of 13. All right, let's rotate this dome a little bit. So you can see like light is hitting the surface and, you know, just kind of getting lost in there. So if we turn off the subsurface, you can really tell what's going on there. So I'll bring this over here, go to the skin shader, and I'll just turn the subsurface off. And what's happening now is that the light's hitting it and just stopping. It's not scattering around inside the surface. And all this micro detail has like sharp shadows because it's not moving through that object. So this micro detail, when the light hits that micro detail, like on your face or whoever's face, it's, you know, scattering in there and going out. So it looks like translucent. If it's a completely opaque object, like this right here with zero subsurface, it's going to look weird like this. So it's going to look super CG if you have like a character that doesn't have any subsurface scattering because the light is not penetrating through and scattering around. So as you're turning this up, you can see it's like starting to actually move through the object a little bit, or yeah, through the surface. So let's see, let's go to the specular. And so you can tell, like you can see these red areas and things like that. And if you painted different, like you could paint veins or different things into that. I'm just clicking on the, so this is the subsurface that we're using. This is honestly like a little bit too purple. So let me try to divide that a little bit. We can just go in and like paint on it if you want to like really add more to it. But you're gonna be, I mean, you can paint all these maps yourself. Let's like do a render with the that map that we just showed you, and then one that's just showing like a red color. So you can kind of see what the difference is. It's probably going to be subtle. So I'm going to just save this one. And then let's, in the hypershade here, which is this file, I'm going to disconnect that file. And for the radius, we're just going to make that a color. So let's just make it red. So now when we render this, there's no map driving the radius color. It's just going to be red all over. Now let's see if we can tell a difference if there's a map applied and if there is not. All right, so pause that, save this one, and let's, so you can tell with the map applied, there's a lot more information being applied to the volume. So this looks kind of like just a piece of gelatin. It doesn't really look like a person. This one's kind of stopping and changing the color of the scattering in different areas. So it just gives like a little more realistic result. But you could, like, I actually kind of like the lips here a little bit more, and just the red. It basically probably means that this map is painted too dark in the lip area. And but the neck looks much better because this just looks like gelatin. But yeah, you can mess with that, making different maps and then, you know, malting them together. There, I mean, this is actually pretty gummy. I'd say that, you know, like a gummy bear, like I'd say that it's probably a little too intense. So, you know, you're going to have to mess with it to taste how you like it. All right, let's update this scene. I just may have crashed. Give me 1 second. Didn't crash, but it was thinking for a long time. So, all right. So that is a basic rundown on how to set up Subsurface. So the main things you're going to be doing is just your base color. You're going to put usually your diffuse, and you can actually even, I'm just going to hit 1 on that to make that smaller. Probably the subsurface color is going to be a little bit different. So let me do another AI color correct. And I'll just hit 1 on that as well to collapse it. So in a previous video, I told you, like, if you hit 1, you can collapse it, and 4, it'll bring back to normal. All right, so I'm just going to hit 1 just to make it smaller. So we're only going to be using it over here. Okay, so I'm going to isolate select. All right. And let's increase the saturation a little bit. And I'm going to gamma it down. 0.9, 0.85, just a little bit. So it's just a little bit different. Okay. So this is the main base color. And I think this is just going to give a little bit more color. It may even be too intense. I think it is. All right, so let me just turn down the saturation a little bit. 0.2. Let me isolate select this one. Oh yeah, I think this one's a little crazy. 0.2 to 1. 0.6. I'm just gamming down. I'm just gonna off screen here. I'm just going to bring down the scale a little bit. Let's try 0.8. Because you got to remember, this model doesn't have a skull and doesn't have real meat on it, so, or cartilage. So you're going to have to kind of paint areas that, if there's too much subsurface like going on here and it's just going through it like a crazy volume, you need to paint out areas that are going to be less translucent. You know, like your skull is right here. So when the light hits that, it's only going to be scattering inside the skin layer and then it stops. But like in your ear, for example, it's just cartilage and skin. So the light is going to go, that's why you can see so directly through people's ears so easily. Your hand, there's not a whole lot in your hand either, you know, and it's pretty thin in comparison to like something like your neck or your arms or something. So it's just like less material to go through. You're going to see more subsurface. All right, let me swing this light around a little bit. We can kind of see a front scatter. All right, so this is just a basic overview of subsurface scattering. So we can go more in depth in this in another video, but for now we're just going to be using this Emily model. But you can use subsurface in many different objects. You can use it in paper and milk, candles, you know, just anything that has translucency. You'll want to have this effect and it'll really add a lot to it. And you want to spend more time painting these maps to kind of fit your needs. These are just like kind of straight out of the box what you get. But if you were deving a character, there would be like a lot of back and forth. You would be like, oh, I want to, like, for example, the lips here versus the skin. This is kind of just like one uniform gradient of color. And really, you would have more specularity here. You'd have more specularity here, and you'd have more specularity on the lips, and like you would malt down some of these areas. So you would paint like a black and white map to kind of knock down those areas individually. All right. So I guess we'll stop it here. So now you know how to just set up a basic skin shader for a character. So it's going to be the base color, your spec color if you're using one, and your subsurface color, which is the front scatter, which is, let me turn on this. So your diffuse map, go here, base, your spec map. This is the subsurface color. This is the back scatter color, the subsurface radius. And then I have the displacement hooked up here. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks.